Hi everyone. Some places are not marked on maps, yet people keep describing them the same way, as if they exist somewhere just off the road and slightly out of time. This video is made for calm, immersive listening, a way to slow down, relax, and sink into an eerie atmosphere without rushing anywhere. In the winter of 2020, a long-haul trucker named Frank Colby, 45 years old, was hauling a refrigerated load across the Great Plains, heading east through a stretch of highway known for endless darkness and few official rest stops. The CB radio buzzed with the usual late-night chatter until two drivers began talking about a place they called the pull-off, where clocks lie and seasons change over one cup of coffee. Frank chuckled, but remembered the landmark they mentioned. An unmarked exit between old mile markers, where navigation systems showed nothing but a gray, empty field. An hour later, fatigue crept in, and the last official rest area was long behind him. He noticed a narrow strip of asphalt veering off to the right. No sign posted, just a dim lamp glowing above something that looked like a small booth. His GPS tried to recalculate, then froze, as if it no longer understood where the truck was. Frank turned off the highway, passed two parked semis, and positioned his own rig so he could see the exit. The light over the lot was oddly even, like the moment before dawn, even though his dashboard clock said it was deep night. The sky above the pull-off looked empty, without stars, as if a pale dome had been stretched overhead. Inside the small shop trailer, a woman in a knitted sweater silently poured him tea from an unbranded electric kettle. It was warm inside, but the noise from the idling trucks outside seemed muffled, as if something unseen absorbed the sound. Only fragments of CB conversations filtered through. Frank ate a quick snack, exchanged a few words with another driver from out of state, logged the stop in his electronic logbook, and glanced at the clock. According to the display, only about 90 minutes had passed. Fighting exhaustion, he started the engine and rolled back onto the highway. A few miles later, things began to feel wrong. New roadside advertisements appeared along the route, logos he had never seen before. A diner he stopped at regularly was closed and boarded up. At the first state trooper checkpoint, the officer examined his documents longer than usual, then called over a partner. They turned his registration and inspection papers over in their hands before asking why he was driving with documents that had expired nearly a year ago. Frank laughed and said he had renewed everything just a few months earlier. The calendar on the station wall read March 2021. His radio repeated the same date, discussing events he was sure had not happened yet. The officers issued a warning, advised him to update his paperwork immediately, and let him go, watching him as if he were playing a strange joke. Shaken, Frank turned the truck around, trying to find the pull-off again. Where he remembered the exit, there was now only a continuous metal barrier. The road was smooth, without the slightest hint of a turn. His GPS showed a straight line, as if no side road had ever existed. When he got home, his wife showed him a full year of messages on his phone, photos from the road, complaints about long lines at way stations, birthday wishes he had sent her. Frank did not remember writing a single one of them, even though the humor and phrasing were unmistakably his. Afraid of losing his grip on reality alone, Frank returned to the CB radio. During night runs, he cautiously asked if anyone had heard of a pull-off between those cities where something feels wrong with the dates. Some drivers laughed nervously, others went silent. Finally, an old, raspy voice answered, "If you stopped under an empty sky, the calendar stopped belonging to you." More stories followed. One driver said he pulled in for a quick meal and came back to find winter had replaced fall. Another talked about a missing month he could not remember, even though his signature appeared on delivery logs. All described the same place, an off-map rest area with a lone booth and a lamp that shines the same no matter the time. Frank began recording these stories, writing down call signs and truck numbers in a notebook. When he took his rig in for service and asked to check the onboard computer, the mechanic showed him something odd. According to mileage and fuel stops, the truck had been running normally between early 2020 and spring 2021. But the route file displayed a perfectly blank segment, a straight gap where locations should have been, as if an entire stretch of travel had been cut out, leaving only the start and end points. Not wanting to keep this to himself, Frank went to a state transportation office to show his notes and the inconsistencies in his records. After being sent from office to office, he ended up speaking with a young officer named Miller, who listened more carefully than the others. A database search revealed several old complaints from drivers with nearly identical stories. Pulled into a rest area, left an hour later, but all documents say more than a year passed. Miller requested information from the highway department about any pull-off in that section. Official files stated the rest area had been dismantled over a decade earlier, the booth sold to a private contractor, the pavement removed. The reported demolition dates differed by several years across documents, and the listed coordinates were vague, as if filled in from memory. Old satellite images showed a rectangular patch of asphalt. Newer layers showed only snow and an empty field. When Miller tried to access an internal report related to the location, the system responded that additional clearance was required. At a briefing, his supervisors dismissed the matter and instructed him to issue Frank a standard response, citing navigation error and human factors. As Frank was leaving, he overheard an older officer quietly remark, "They wrote about that pull-off back in the 90s. There was an order not to touch it." A few days later, while cleaning his cab, Frank pulled a folded sheet of paper from the glove compartment. It was a traffic citation issued to him and his truck. The date and time read July 2024 on that same stretch of highway. A year that had not yet arrived was printed on an official form with fresh stamps. Reading it, Frank felt his fingers tremble. At the bottom was Officer Miller's signature, written with confidence, and beside it his own, slightly uneven, like someone tired and in a hurry. In the explanation field, neat handwriting stated, "Rushing to reach the pull-off, overdue for rest." Frank knew he had never written those words. He brought the citation to Miller. The officer went pale. The document listed a badge number he had not yet been assigned, and the stamp of a unit that officially existed only on paper. A system check showed no such citation on file. Silence hung between them. Both understood they were holding a document from a future that already seemed to know how events would unfold. Miller tried to joke about a prank from the department, but the humor fell flat. Quietly, he suggested the only explanation he could think of. At some point in July 2024, Frank would once again be on that same highway and would actually sign that paper. The pull-off, officially non-existent, would draw him back into its trap. Frank decided that if the loop could be broken, it would be by never returning to that road. He changed companies, took routes farther south and east, and marked the area as a personal no-go zone in his navigation system. For nearly 3 years, it worked. He began to call March 2021 his second birthday, joking about it with other drivers, though the feeling in his chest never eased. In early summer 2024, his new company landed a major contract that required runs along that very highway, now under reconstruction. Management refused to reassign him. On the first day of the trip, Frank drove tense and slow, watching every sign. A bridge closure forced traffic onto a temporary detour, a side route that had not existed before. His GPS recalculated and pointed directly toward the place where the pull-off had once been. He argued over the radio, asking dispatch for an alternative, but was told there was none. Wind pushed dust along the shoulder. Ahead, a dim lamp came into view. In the glove compartment, the folded citation rustled softly, as if reminding him the road had already been traveled, even if he had not yet finished it. When Frank saw the familiar junction, his vision darkened for a moment. To the right lay a flat parking area with 3 trucks idling, their marker lights glowing as if they were waiting rather than resting. Above the booth, the same lone lamp flickered. The sky over the pull-off was pale and empty, without stars, while the highway beyond sank into normal night. At the same time, Officer Miller sat at his desk, monitoring traffic data. On his screen, Frank's truck moved along the route. Then the marker froze inside a blank square labeled Unassigned Zone. Minutes later, it jumped forward, as if a piece of the journey had been erased. A new line appeared in the system log. Speed violation recorded, July 2024. Miller opened a blank citation form and stared at the date in the corner. He understood that somewhere on the highway, someone was already handing him the same sheet of paper that once lay folded in Frank's glove compartment. The words for the explanation field were already clear in his mind. Among truckers, an unspoken rule eventually took hold. Do not pull off at the nameless junction, no matter how tired you are. On the CB, drivers said it simply, time there isn't ours. And in old traffic databases, strange citations sometimes surfaced, issued to people who had long since changed jobs or passed away. The location line always read the same, a stretch of highway where maps showed only an empty field, and memories of those who lost years insisted there had once been a place to stop, where time waited for new drivers.